Okay. Barbell Physio.
What's up?
I love it, dude. I love all the stuff that you're putting on. But
Thank you.
take me through a little snippet of the journey that you decided to embark on, and now, I mean, it's clearly paid off.
So I started out working in strength and conditioning. Thought that was what I wanted to focus on long term. And the more I was in just strictly strength and conditioning, the more I realized that wasn't what I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. Went to physical therapy school. Realized the kind of physical therapy wasn't the traditional physical therapy was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I'm just very fortunate that I was able to kind of bridge those two things together and talk to athletes trying to improve their performance about the little details of mobility and isolated strength stuff that can help push their big time performance, what they actually care about, or on the flip side of that, help the physical therapy world understand these more complex movements and performance oriented stuff that our profession has not traditionally known enough about. So traditionally we don't do a good enough job knowing how to coach somebody through a squat or a deadlift. And so it's just wonderful to be able to kind of touch both of those worlds a little bit, get the best of both.
Yeah, man. I see everyone who's creating those waves in the physical therapy scene is doing exactly that, is combining the two and using the whole slogan as movement is medicine, right? Rather than
Right.
come in, I'll give you a little rub down, or maybe you get on this tiny little TheraBand and you do this, and then you're like, yeah, you're fixed. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, right.
it's an issue.
Yeah. Where do you think that came from? Do you think it's just outdated research? Do you think it's like the sheer number of like patients coming through?
There's part of it's going to be the sheer number of patients, just because of the way, at least in the United States, how our model's set up. We don't, for most people, get enough time one-on-one with people. I think another issue that we have is, how do you know how to appropriately dose exercise, whether somebody's injured or not injured, if you don't exercise yourself? And so I'd say from my profession standpoint, there's not enough physical therapists that regularly practice movement and regularly lift weights. And so if I'm trying to talk to somebody about strengthening their quads after an ACL reconstruction, but I've never done squats or heavy lunges before, how in the world do I even begin to appropriately dose that or tell somebody what it should feel like when we're trying to strengthen them? So it's like, if you went to your doctor and your doctor told you to stop smoking, but you could clearly smell cigarette smoke on them, like, you're going to know that they're full of crap. If somebody that doesn't exercise is trying to teach you about exercise and strengthening and loading, you're going to know that they're kind of full of crap, and you're not going to get what you should out of that. So I think it's that combination of two things. We need
I
more
completely
movement.
agree. I completely agree. Like, and if I flip it over onto the dance floor, onto the coaching sort of scene, are you going to give the coach the level of respect they deserve if they're massively overweight? You're like, probably not. It poses a difficult thing. Is like, do you have to be able to do it to the level that you're coaching? Then no. But do you need to be able to practice what you preach and kind of lead from the front? Yeah, it's in your job description.
Yep.
You signed on that dotted line.
Yeah,
That's
I love
man.
that phrase. Lead from the front, be about it.
You've got to, right? It goes back to that Man in the Arena with Teddy Roosevelt.
I'm not familiar with that one. I'll check that out later.
The man in the Arena quote?
No, I don't know it.
Oh, mate, it's like my favorite quote of all time.
All right, I'll pull it up later.
Yeah, it's a goodie. It's a very goodie. So what mistakes do you think is the biggest in the whole physical therapy scene, in the whole prehab scene? If you were just to pick out a couple and be like, right, if you're doing this, I'm going to punch you in the fucking face.
I think it really comes down to holding ourselves and patients accountable for knowing if we're doing the right thing. So if somebody comes in to see me for an evaluation, I'm going to choose a couple of things that they say produce their symptoms. Let's say you have back pain. I'm going to really try to accurately choose two things that we can judge our success on. So you say, all right, it's a 3 out of 10 pain when I pick my daughter up out of the crib. It's a 5 out of 10 pain when I walk more than a half mile. Like, I want some specific markers for what's the dosage of a movement that creates a certain intensity of symptoms. That way I can, week by week, session to session, whatever, track if those markers are getting better. So it's two subjective things. We're going to also choose two objective measurements. That's going to be, I have you bend forward and reach towards your toes. I have you deadlift, and we rate how much weight it takes in the clinic with your deadlift for your pain to come on. We choose two subjective, two objective markers, and we apply different interventions, and we see what the response to those are. And so basically we know within session and between sessions if we're doing things correctly or not. If things aren't improving measurably, then we need to change course, change dosage, something. On the same side, like if you're an athlete or you're a coach, like what are you doing to making sure that the programming that you're doing is working? You're looking back week by week. Did my bench press go up over the last month? If it didn't, what are the factors that led to that? Did I not train the bench enough? Did I train it too much? Did I not have good accessory work on that? Did I not take care of my recovery that much? You start looking at those variables because you have this very easy to follow objective measurement of if you're doing things the right way or not. So I think across all fields, it's finding those markers that tell you if you're on the right track or not, and then adjusting if you're not on the right track. You don't want to train for a year and see no improvements in your bench press or your squat or your deadlift. I don't want to see somebody for 10 visits and not see marked improvement in their symptoms. And so it's just holding myself accountable in either way.
And it's the amount of time someone comes in, right, and be like, oh, I've been seeing whatever type of therapist. You're like, okay, cool. Like, how long have you been seeing them? A year? Okay. Has it been getting any better? No. Why the fuck are you seeing them?
Yeah. You got to take a different look at it. Got to do something different.
Yeah, like,
the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome, right?
There you go. That's exactly it. Like Einstein himself.
Yeah, I'll be the first to say that I'm plenty guilty of at times in my life doing the exact opposite of what I'm preaching. Like I've for the last 3 months been tracking my macros, trying to lean up a little bit. For God knows how many months before that, I was trying to lean up, but not actually tracking. And so I was not seeing steady improvements because I wasn't holding myself accountable enough. Now, when I weigh myself in weekly, the same day of the week, fasted state, first thing in the morning, and I'm tracking what I'm eating day by day, I'm getting these objective measurements for, is what I'm doing working or not? So I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of that at times, but
we're all human, man. You know what I mean? And we all need to learn from those lessons and those mistakes and those failures. And that's what allows you to then give better advice and help more people, in my opinion, is all those little trip ups and mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
We are all human, we're organic. We fuck up. It's in our nature.
Yep.
So in terms of your own personal education and like development, did you just get all that from school, or was it more of a, hold on a minute, I see all these holes, all these faults, and then go for wider education for yourself and the books or external courses or whatever? What did you do to be able to bridge the gap?
It's going to be a combination of the two. I mean, I got to say, there's a ton of people that I've learned a million different ways of bridging those gaps. So there's guys like Mike Ryman, who's a researcher and a physical therapist that talks about appropriately dosing exercise in the clinic. Talks a lot about hip pain as well. There's guys like Juggernaut Strength and RP Strength that just put out nonstop fantastic material that's helped improve my understanding of some of these things. And Greg Knuckles and other people like that I just continue to learn tons of stuff from. I'd say that from a gift standpoint, one thing that I have just organically had, which is probably just from, I've been lifting weights for 20 years now, is just my ability to choose the right exercise is a little faster. Like I travel around the United States teaching other physical therapists courses. And so I get to see how other physical therapists practice and their thought processes quite a bit. And I'd say that I very quickly tap into what intervention somebody needs faster. Like I'm able to look at your squat, come up with a hypothesis and choose like what sort of corrective exercise do I think will improve that rapidly. And that's just one of those things that I think I naturally have a little bit better at than some people. But figuring out how to do that comes from learning from a lot of other people too.
Yeah, for sure. And like, yes, granted, you probably have a little bit of that natural ability of that foresight and being able to dissect it on the fly and figure it out mentally. But at the same time, like you've done a 20-year experiment on yourself, so you can't negate that work that you've put in.
Reps.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, it's like, no, like Zach's been fucking working hard.
And coaching, it helps a ton too. So like most physical therapists
100%.
see, in the States, let's say they're seeing 2 people an hour, 8-hour a day. So they're seeing 16 people a day. I coach a class for 1 hour at the CrossFit gym. I saw 16 people move. And that number of repetitions you get from that really speeds up the learning process as well.
Yeah, for sure. If you wanna be able to consolidate some knowledge, coach.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, because you're like, oh, I don't
When I was
know it as
working
well
in
as I thought I'd do. Why
strength
is
and
this not
conditioning,
working?
teaching 50 freshman high school football players to lift in about an hour 15 is a great way to learn a lot of cues really, really fast, because you got 20 seconds with each athlete and you're trying to fix a lot of uncoordinated lifts, and you got to get good really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, the type of people that will deadlift and then will look to the side and be like, is this okay? I'm like, oh my God, don't ever look at me.
Yeah.
Do not twist your neck and look somewhere else when you're deadlifting. Oh, yeah. Oh man, I've seen that too many times and thrown a couple PVC pipes at them, you know what I mean? But hey, like, we're a bit different back home. In terms of coaching other physical therapists, right? I'm fascinated on that, because that's a different set of skill set. As in, you're now coaching coaches, you are coaching therapists. They are already embarked on that journey. How did you get started in that? And then what's it like, man?
So basically getting started, and that kind of started organically. Just became friends with a couple other guys. Jeff Moore, who owns a company called Institute of Clinical Excellence, Mitch Babcock, who was a student of mine many years ago, and just through a friendship with those three. Jeff was teaching continuing education courses with a drastically different mindset than what most people were. And just that friendship resulted in us looking at the fitness space and what's happening in physical therapy, and understanding as a group that what the world needs more than anything else right now is fitness. And so when most physical therapists are trying to be focused on like, all right, let's do these isolated, load up your rotator cuff muscles, we're looking at the landscape of what's happening worldwide. Like right now during the COVID pandemic, it's a great example of this. Like, we have a true fitness problem in the world. Too many people are not active, are overweight, have too many comorbidities. And so we all have this mindset of, when you're hurt, how do we use that as an opportunity to start implementing different lifestyle factors? Like, if you've got low back pain, we need to do some exercise of some form to start improving that low back pain. But instead of us doing bird dogs and clamshells and dead bugs and these boring isolation exercises, let's see how we can up the exercise intensity to not only help pain, but help improve your quality of life. So for example, there's a number of research studies that look at like low load motor control exercises, your dead bugs, your clamshells, your bird dogs, and compare that to deadlifting in people with low back pain. And we're going to find pretty similar outcomes in terms of their pain changes. But what we're going to see long term, the person that deadlifts for 8 to 12 weeks versus the person that does bird dogs for 8 to 12 weeks, who's fitter? The person that deadlifted. So that person is now going to have a higher quality of life, like their ability to carry groceries into the house, their ability to carry that laundry basket up a flight of stairs, to care for their spouse that's a little bit disabled right now. All of these different factors are going to improve. So we're going to choose the intervention that's not just going to help your pain, but it's going to help change your life. Or if we have to do some of those lower level exercises, like let's say that we have to do some I don't want to say glute bridges because I hate glute bridges. Let's say we're doing like unloaded hip thrusts, and we're doing some farmer's carries, or just some slightly lower exercises than deadlifts in terms of their intensity. Let's put that in a circuit. Let's hit like a 12-minute EMOM of that. Minute 1, you're doing farmer's carries. Minute 2, you're doing hip thrusts. Minute 3, we're doing Palloff press, whatever it is. Turn that into a circuit so we're getting strength and working those muscles hard, but we're also keeping your heart rate elevated. Like, why do a set of hip thrusts, rest a minute, do another set? Like, let's keep your heart rate jacked up. Let's get the great benefits we get from high intensity interval training by doing something like an EMOM or AMRAP, circuit style high intensity interval training with our physical therapy, because again, that stuff will drive more adaptations in the human body. And so our mindset is, how do we get more bang for our buck? Change pain, totally change lives. And so that is just a blast of fun to get to talk to people about all the time, because it really goes against what so much of the medical world's about, which is just solely focused on symptoms. Are you familiar with CrossFit's continuum of health?
Yes.
Okay, so like that's how we look at this quite a bit. Is, the whole medical world is focused on going from sick to well. We think, why stop at well?
Mm-hmm.
Like that person that is well is very close to going back down into the shit again. The further we get them, the fitter we get them, the more buffer we have against whatever it is they were dealing with. And so that's the mindset we want to have in all of our interventions.
Yeah, man, I remember many, many years ago, the full master Carl Steadman wrote that up on the board and basically spoke us through it on my level 1, right? And I looked at it and was like, that's complete common sense. You know what I mean?
Common sense,
that makes
nobody has put it out there just so eloquently as they did. Exactly. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like all of CrossFit's methodology, but like if you take the level 1 and you listen to that, you listen to their definition of fitness, so many of those things are just, like you said, super intuitive, but nobody's put it together the way CrossFit did. And yeah, that continuum of health is what I think everybody in the strength and conditioning world should appreciate, that should read that article. Everybody in the medical world should read that model and change our mindset on what we're going through. Like our way of saying that at the physical therapy company that I own is back to baseline is bullshit. Like we don't want to get your back strength just back to where it was prior to you getting injured, because the person that came into my clinic got injured. So let's make your back even stronger than it was before you got injured to give you more of a buffer, which is the sickness, fitness, wellness continuum.
Back to baseline is bullshit.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. I like that. I'm going to start throwing that out and pushing people onto you. I like it. I like that a lot. What type of, what pushback do you receive from therapists already within the industry when you go in and say, hey, this is what we're going to do?
I'd say the biggest one is there's a lot of people that are going to argue like that, low load motor control exercises, let's take low back pain because that's the biggie, are going to have the same effects on people's pain as heavy deadlifting. So they're going to say, why should I learn to do these more complex movements when I can get the same pain changes with a walking program, with a low intensity deadlift bird dog program? And that my answer to that is twofold. Number one, you're completely missing the point. This isn't about their back pain, it's about their life. If all things are equal, let's choose the one that's going to have longer term effects than the 3 months or 6 months that this research study on back pain looked at. Number two, some other research studies have found that when they compare low load motor control exercises to heavy lifting, heavy strength and conditioning, kinesiophobia, fear of movement, is significantly reduced in the people that did the heavy lifting program. And really, like, how many people do you know that have had a couple of episodes of low back pain? Right now, they're maybe not even symptomatic, but they always talk about their bad back. That's kinesiophobia. That's them being scared of it. I don't want that. I want you to believe that your back is strong as hell because you can deadlift 185 pounds. Mm-hmm. If you can deadlift 185, you are not scared of doing an hour of yard work, of picking up a bag of dog food. Mm-hmm. Let's reduce kinesiophobia. So from those two standpoints, I just don't get that argument from very many people.
That's so true, man. People are scared to move, right? And as we know, like, if you don't fucking use it, you lose it. And once you get that chronic or acute injury, whatever the fuck it is, and you're like, okay, I'm never going to do that again. I'm like, you're like 24. What do you mean you're never going to do it again? Like, realistically, you're going to live another like 80 years. You mean you're never going to hinge your hips again? You're never going to pick something up off the floor? If I drop my pen, am I like, well, it's lost forever? It doesn't make any sense. And yeah, you have said it in a much more scientific and beautiful manner than I'll ever do. So I'll definitely push people on and be like, listen to this. This is what I mean. But yeah, for sure. I have seen, I honestly couldn't give you a number. The amount of people that come in and was like, I can't do that. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, why? And it's like, oh, well, I've either hurt my back in the past, or I did something along the similar lines and it hurt, or I saw a therapist and they said I shouldn't deadlift or I shouldn't squat. And I'm like, okay, brilliant. I'm like, well, do you take a shit each day? They're like, well, yeah. I'm like, well, so you sit down onto the bog and then you get yourself back up. I was like, cool. We're going to start from that. I'm going to start you on a box, like real high. with
I was
no
thinking
weight.
you were about to say that you're taking a kettlebell in the bathroom and making them.
I mean, that's another approach, right? Well, then I'll have to go into people's houses and I'll have to watch them squat. Like, it gets weird.
Yeah.
I guess I could do that, especially during lockdown, right? Drop a little
Yeah.
kettlebell off at people's houses. I'm like, listen, every time you take a shit, I want you to do a goblet squat. It would work. Maybe. So the Performance Plus programming is a little lowdown and a little overview of that in particular.
Yeah. So a friend of mine, Pamela Gagnon, is pretty well known in the CrossFit community. So for years, she was on CrossFit's gymnastics course staff. It's now rebranded to I think it's called the gymnastics course. So she still works for them. But Pamela and I got together, and CrossFit for years has done a great job with their CrossFit journal of just putting out educational pieces of content to try to regularly give people free or cheap access to continued education. And we got together and basically wrote a series of 12 articles for CrossFit Journal on developing different skills and how to do a smart progression of those skills. And out of that, we just continually had people asking us for, okay, we get your progression. We get that a toe assist pull-up does a better job than band assisted pull-ups of helping you get your first strict pull-up. But like, how do I put this in a program? And so just organically from that, we started writing out programs to help people meet their specific goals. And as of like today, we hit 42 programs on our app that are all accessory programs. So if you want to get your first muscle up, if you want to improve your muscle up endurance, if you want to learn to handstand walk, if you want to improve your ankle mobility, we have these short programs that are meant to be done kind of in addition to whatever your normal training is. So if you're going into the CrossFit gym, these programs take 8 to 15 minutes, 3 to 4 days a week for the most part. They aren't too hard in intensity or volume that they're going to make you feel beat up for the next day. And they're just going to help you week by week build up towards these skills if you have something that you've been stuck on for a while. So we're pretty fortunate there that that's been very well received in the community and helped thousands of people at this point hit that next goal.
And I like the spin you've put on it from a therapist side, and then also combining that with a gymnastics side and kind of getting that beautiful synergy within the middle. That is something that, everyone comes in, and gymnastics is usually the one thing that people struggle with, right? Unless you've been a cheerleader or a gymnast, or you're just an absolute freak or a ninja, which, hats off if you are. But that's what most people struggle with, and getting those step-by-step progressions is not only better for the coaches, but it's for the athletes too, right? Because if you just come into the scene and you've been a PT at your local global gym, and then you've done your level 1 and you're coaching in the box, and someone comes up to you and goes, I'll use me for example, Alex, like, how do I get a muscle up? And you're like, all you've done is a bodybuilding split, done your level 1, got a high five, and now you're like on the dance floor, which is awesome. But it's like, well, I don't know, let's try and figure this out. It's like, no, now we've got a step-by-step from 2 very knowledgeable people within the scene to be able to teach yourself first.
Yeah, and it's so tough. Like for most CrossFit coaches, let's say you're coaching a class and you're at a good gym, it's not overloading that coach. So an hour-long class, you got 15 athletes. You can probably, let's say muscle ups show up in the workout, you can probably help everybody get to an appropriate scale. But your ability to then say, like, this is your scale for today, but how do you get to where 2 months from now you can actually do this workout RX? Is challenging. It takes a ton of time. Coaches are typically already pretty busy, so we're trying to fill that gap for coaches and still let athletes get affordable help for where they are.
Yeah, totally. But like coaches development off their own back, and then also within the gym is paramount. And like you have to be able to do it. Like if you don't do it, then don't sign on the dotted line and say you're going to coach. Like be a casual, do a Friday lunchtime class or whatever, and that's awesome. Like that's always a space for those types of coaches. But you have to be able to, like, okay, let's read the journal articles. Like, for example, they are brilliant in the sense of each week you get an email and it's just flowing them out. You know what I mean? You get to read on anything, and being study groups, that's also a good one. Like the study group back home with the UK and Ireland study group, give them a shout out. They are brilliant. So they'll just talk over a couple of maybe 2 to 3 articles each week, and then just kind of work through them all. Once you've done that, we go on to level 1, level 2, start going on to the kids section. So yeah, that's CDP. It's vital.
Yep, 100%.
It's vital. So where do you go for your CDP?
So I'm fortunate in the company that I teach for, that we have a broad range of people with different specialties. Wow. So I'd say that's probably awesome. 75% of what I do from a learning perspective is I just attend courses for the other people that teach for this company. So usually about 4 times a year, I'm going and doing a weekend course with one of those that I'm just attending. I'm not teaching that. Beyond that, I mean, I mentioned a few of these earlier: juggernaut strength, RP strength, Renaissance periodization, the hypertrophy coach, Fitness Maverick on Instagram. We're fortunate we're in a time period where there's a lot of people to learn from.
Yeah, for sure. Like social media is a beautiful thing, right? Because you can market yourself for free and also access this free education again for free. So it's like just surround yourself with as much of that information as possible so you can consume it wherever. Obviously, not getting overloaded and where you can't sleep and all that. You need to look after yourself. But if we don't go to the extreme, then just surround yourself with it. I think that was the biggest thing for me, and kind of like learning from the likes of yourself. We connected via an email that I got from an Instagram. I'm like, well, we connected through the free shit that you put on the Instagram. I'm like, this is top class. I want to have a conversation.
Thanks.
So it's yeah, man. Like I'm now going to be working, I think, as of next week with a small team of coaches, just to coach them up and help them out, and lead from the front in that sense. And
you're coaching them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a weird thing.
Way to learn.
It is.
And every time I teach a course, I come out thinking, like, I think I probably learned more this weekend than what I taught out.
Funny you said that, because that's exactly what I said to the last CrossFit gym I worked at in the UK. I worked there for 3 years, right? And I turned around and I was like, guys, hopefully you've learned, something from me. I appreciate all your time. However, you'll never understand how much I've learned from you guys. From coaching you guys, I have learned so much. Like they can learn, say for example, there's 15 in the class, they can learn from one person, right? Because there's that one coach, but I can learn from 15 people in that 1 hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's one of those special things in life, coaching. It's a very weird thing to be able to define. I think there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of intuition. You've got to be able to, like a class is an organic thing. You've got to be able to move and adapt with it.
100%. That's one of the things that really separates good coaches, is that ability to read what's happening in the room and adjust on the fly.
Yep. And it goes back to like not being scared to fuck up. So you're going to take some absolutely dog shit classes,
Yeah. And you're going to deliver poor quality at times. And it's just about stopping and learning from that poor quality.
That's it, man. And going back and be like, okay, what did I do? And why did it not work? Or why did I miss the mark? Or did I use a joke that didn't land very, very well in someone's ears? You know what I mean? That's probably me all the time. Yeah. Especially when I left home. We've got a special humor back there.
Oh yeah. Last course I taught, I had a joke that just completely flopped. Oh, so bad. Do not ask me to repeat it, because I will not do it. I thought it was funny as hell.
You can you can hear the tumbleweed just roll across the room. You're like,
so bad. Yeah.
Okay. So bad. Moving on. Yeah, they're like the worst thing is if you make it and then you go bright red. Like
I don't think I went red. I don't think it was too bad. I moved on pretty quick, but
okay, that's good. That's good. You just got to make them super sarcastic. So it kind of looks like you're telling them straight rather than actually making a joke. So then you've got a backdoor entrance to get out of the joke. You know what I mean?
That's a good tip.
Yeah. That's everything we do back home. Just super sarcastic. But you might miss the mark. a few times with some people.
Mm-hmm.
So the CrossFit space, in terms of how did you get into it? And then holes that you saw into it when you first came in, and now how have you seen it develop from your therapist standpoint rather than like a newbie coach coming in or an athlete?
So got into it just being generally in strength conditioning and following different trends happening. I started to see this CrossFit stuff back in its really, really early days. And I immediately just thought of it like a lot of what their focus on back in the day was on your military first responders, et cetera. So I got into it looking at it on a daily basis, thinking of my brother who's active in the Army and sharing stuff with him, but thinking for me, like that's not the style of training that I want to do. And so just followed it all through PT school. And then after physical therapy school, actually went to a CrossFit gym and started to actually recognize that it was significantly different than what my thought from the outside was, even as somebody like actively following the sport. Like when you're in that community and in that training, it is much different than what you probably perceive it to be.
Yep.
So it's fortunate to just get involved with a couple of good gyms early on. Back in probably started to become familiar with CrossFit in like 2008, 2009, started training that way and probably became familiar in 2010, probably started training that way in 2013. So it's pretty small still at that time period. From a holes perspective, like the methodology of CrossFit is fairly solid when you look at it from the perspective of building overall fitness and not having any significant holes in your fitness. I think when most people misinterpret things with CrossFit, it's misinterpreting like high rep Olympic lifting or box jumping. They don't recognize how much CrossFit discusses dialing in mechanics, then consistently reproducing that mechanics before you add intensity onto the equation. Yep. Certainly there are examples of that not happening, but there's examples of crap happening in every aspect of the strength and conditioning profession. Like we're going to see people doing loaded squats on Bosu balls all the time on YouTube. Do we say that every NASM or CSCS strength coach out there sucks? No, but because CrossFit's kind of the big dog in the space right now and people dislike it still a little bit, like they find those things, they find those specific case examples in the gym down the street or the person they saw on YouTube and say that's everybody. But from a mechanic standpoint, I think the methodology is great. Like that's build your aerobic fitness, your flexibility, your cardiorespiratory endurance, your strength, your power output, your coordination. Like all of those aspects have significant impacts on somebody's health long-term. So let's not ignore one of those at the expense of another if our goal is maximizing health. So I'm not saying that this is what I think everybody should do. First of all, I think you do whatever you love to do exercise-wise. I'd rather you never lift weights if you only enjoy running. Like if you know you're not going to stick with weightlifting, I'm not going to force weightlifting down your throat if you just want to run. I think you'd be a better runner if you did some weightlifting, but I just want people to be active. But if somebody's saying, I want to be as fit as possible, it is not going and running every day. It's running some, it's rowing some, it's running fast sometimes, it's running slow sometimes, it's lifting heavy weights sometimes, it's lifting light weights for high volume. It's all of these combinations of stuff that's going to build your broad base of fitness. I'd say the biggest hole I currently see in the CrossFit space is the strength bias programming. If we look at how CrossFit typically discusses programming, they very rarely put multiple components in a workout. Like you show up one day and it's a strength day. The next day you do a couplet that's, in that like mid-range time domain, like 8 to 15 minutes. Next day, there's a burner, there's a Fran, sub 5 minutes, all out effort. A couple days later, another heavy day. A couple days later, there's a longer, like 30-minute Metcon. They're kind of all over the place, but in those days, you don't always see work up to a 5-rep max deadlift and then do Diane. Work up to this weight for your clean and jerk, hit 6x3 at that, and then do a 20-minute Metcon. What you see at CrossFit.com is typically one element programmed at a time, which has some advantages, I believe. Number one, it allows you to maintain maximal intensity. When you start doing strength or skill work and always combine that with a Metcon, you can't give 100% on both. One of those has to give a little bit. The other thing it does is now we're adding in a lot of extra volume. More volume means it takes more to recover from that. The vast majority of people going to CrossFit have a full-time job and significant responsibilities outside of the gym. They don't have the ability to focus on all these little minute details around their recovery. They're probably not sleeping enough. They're probably not eating properly. So we don't need to always throw more volume at them. The third thing that does for coaches is, let's take that hour-long class and let's say we're doing a Metcon that's 15 minutes long and has a more advanced skill like a muscle up. It gives us plenty of time to do a general warm-up. It gives us plenty of time to work on that skill and make sure that everybody in that class is doing the exact right variation of the muscle up regression of that, so that they are all getting the intended stimulus of the workout. If we always have our 15-minute general warm-up, our 15 to 20 minutes of a strength component, 15 to 20-minute Metcon, where does the coaching happen? Where do we appropriately dose that exercise for everybody in the gym? What happens is the coaching gets cut out and the coaches just start hurting people between different exercises. People don't get the appropriate dosage for that workout. And we'll actually see a lot of times people's progress stall out and go slower because they're not doing the appropriately dosed version of that workout. So I typically like to think the biggest hole is that over programming of volume in CrossFit.
I completely agree. And they talk about, through the education structure of CrossFit, they talk about those being double days, right? Having two intended stimuli within one class is technically a double day. You know, people would traditionally look at a double day of saying, I'm going to have two separate sessions with a period of rest in between, right? And you're like, well, yes, and also no. It's like, if you're doing two things that have completely different like objectives to be able to complete within one session, you are doing two things. Like, you're doing two workouts. And people look at the competition side, right? Whether they watch the fucking documentary of the games, which I think is absolutely incredible, whether they watch like a day in the life of like bloody Fraser or Fronin or whatever, which again I think is incredible. Like, they're like, okay, cool. If I want to be there, I've got to do that. And I'm like, no, because you're not starting from the same point. You know, they're starting from Mount Everest and trying to climb to the stars. You're starting from sea level. Their
life is completely revolved around that as well. Yeah. Now there is benefit to doing double days.
Yes.
Absolute benefit. Like it's great to at times do, like, what was the open workout this year? It had front squats, thrusters, toes bars, muscle ups, chest to bars. So it had a vertical pulling component and a squat component to it. And then you finish that with like a
heavy lift, a complex
heavy lift. It was like a deadlift, hang clean,
a jerk,
push stroke,
right?
Or something. Like, there's benefits to seeing what sort of maximal strength output can you have after you've been really fatigued. But that's not every single CrossFit Open workout, nor should it be every CrossFit workout of the week. It should show up kind of sparingly.
Yeah, for sure. And this is where like programming starts to bias towards trainers versus coaches, right? And this is kind of it's a grime for me. Like, it really pisses me off. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, these trainers are herding cats. They're basically being a cheerleader. You're paying them for their hour to like brief the board, give people a high five, and be like, yeah, let's keep going, because I have no time to tell them anything different. I was like, no, they're coaches. You pay them to help people move better, period.
Yeah.
And how do we able to program so they're able to do that? And then, CDP, so they can develop as a coach and become a little bit better and a little bit better, faster on the fly. Great. However, if you throw so much within an hour, there's only so much you're going to be able to get out of that.
Yeah. And another thought around that is, let's say you come into CrossFit and your goal is, how do I improve all levels of fitness? But you come with a very biased background. Yeah. You were a marathon runner for a long time. You come into a CrossFit gym that's always doing multiple double days every single day of the week. Your ability to kind of catch up on certain things is actually going to be reduced, because you need to maybe do a little bit of extra accessory strength work, and you don't have anywhere to put that in when you're already so tapped on volume. Or if you come from a Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting background like I did, like I need more endurance stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, I can, if I'm going to a gym that doesn't have double days all the time, I could maybe prioritize 2 days a week finishing my workout with like a 2-mile jog, just to try to build a little bit of that aerobic base a little bit more. But if I'm every single day going in, doing a lift or skill work, doing a long Metcon, there's nothing left at the end of that hour to add a little bit of specific work to what I need.
Yeah, I like that way of thinking about it. You have nothing left. You are tapping out your members and your athletes. So if they need anything specific, they can't give you anything productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that point. That's real good. Yeah, for sure. I like it. Yeah, man. Like coaching versus trainers. So coaching versus cheerleading is something that absolutely winds my gears. Like I think a lot of gyms kind of substitute virtuosity for volume.
Yeah.
They're like, what do we want to do? Oh, we want to kick our members in the face. I'm like, okay, why? It's like, because they feel like they've done better. I'm like, cool. They pay you because of your expertise. You're supposed to be more knowledgeable in this area than they are because they're paying you. All right. Well, fucking give them what they need then, not what they want.
Yeah, I understand that there's a balance there when your members are asking for certain things, and that let's say you look back at your programming now and you recognize that you have been a very strength biased double day person for too long. Like it's a very challenging thing to go back to what CrossFit was originally intended from a programming stimulus. You're going to have a lot of members that kick back, and so there's you're going to have to do a really good job culturally of explaining why you're making these changes if you do that. And it 100% can be done. I know some people that have done it poorly and they've lost a number of members. A friend that I mentioned earlier, Mitch Babcock, who I teach with, his gym did this. So they went from when he took over this gym from previous management, they were very strength biased. And he took them down to this single day focus and had to do a lot of discussions around people on why they were doing that it was going to give them more time to make sure everybody got the appropriate dosage. And essentially what happened, and it took a while, but like 6 months after making this change, all the members start looking back at their numbers and recognizing that, okay, my squat was kind of plateaued when I was doing these double days. Even though I was squatting a lot more, a lot heavier, more frequently, I was not actually realizing those adaptations like I should have. And it wasn't until we took a step back that they actually started to progress significantly. So it's a challenging step to make for gym owners, but you got to really make sure you explain that well to your members so they understand why you're making those changes. And ultimately they will see that pays off for them in their fitness, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. Like you've got to be able to communicate that to your paying customers, right? And to your people as they should be. But I think this is where my argument comes in of like your base programming for just a natural gym, right? For the masses, anyone can come in, we're going to coach you. Your base programming should be based around GPP. Like that's it. Like make them better at life. I'm like, cool. And then if you wanted to add in an extra program outside of that class, which is a strength bias, which is a conditioning bias, which is a gymnastic, but whatever it is, fantastic. But the bread and butter, the foundational, if you want to come 3 times a week, I would suggest you come to our GPP classes because it's going to make you better at life. Full stop. We are in agreement, and I absolutely love it, brother. If people wanted to find you and watch your shit, listen to your shit, where would you send them? Because you do a lot.
Yeah, so I'd probably go to thebarbellphysio.com. That's probably going to be like the central hub there. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, but I always like to say like Facebook and Instagram are just snapshots. Yeah, just little pieces, and we can go significantly more in depth if you read an entire article around a subject than you can get from just looking at a couple of random exercises on Instagram. Or from a programming perspective, if you know you have a goal that you're trying to hit that you want help at, performanceplusprogramming.com is where all of the 42 plus programs that we have available are for purchase.
Absolutely spot on. I know I will 100% be reading more in depth of your shit, specifically, simply because first of all, I vibe with what you say. And second of all, me on a selfish level want to become a better coach. And everyone needs to be doing their own CDP as well as some structured within their institute of their gym, right? And then it helps my coaches. So I thank you for what you do.
Thank you for having me, man. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, brother. If you're ever in this end of the town, far bottom right corner of the world, give us a shout and we'll grab a coffee and throw down.
Sounds good, man.
All right, man. Take it easy.